I'm Chloe Hawkey, and I was in Columbia's Columbia and Slavery seminar in spring 2015. My project worked on Columbia students in the early Republic period and their relationship to slavery. The task was a difficult one. Few records, such as diaries or notebooks, remain of the students' time at Columbia. Furthermore, slavery was all too common in New York at this time, and it was not yet the major source of tension that it would become in the decades to come. Few students felt the need to comment at all on its presence or its justice. It was simply a fact of life. Though they may have discussed it informally, the archive that retains no evidence of this sort of conversation. As a result of this relative dearth of information, I have focused my research on just three main sources: the published essays of Daniel D. Tompkins, class of 1795, the manuscript of an essay by Egbert Benson Jr., class of 1807, and the minutes of the Philo-Lexian Society between 1816 and 1836. Through these, I have tried to understand how the Columbians who did respond to slavery felt about it, what language they used to talk about slavery, and what role Columbia may have played in shaping these ideas. For the most part, the students who spoke and wrote about slavery fell somewhere on the anti-slavery spectrum between colonization and outright abolition. The only exceptions were those who debated in favor of slavery in the organized Philo-Lexian debates. And even then, they were in the minority. Of the 16 times that the Society debated slavery over these 20 years, the outcomes of the final audience vote favored slavery only 4 times. It is hard to say, of course, whether those pro-slavery arguments were genuine beliefs expressed in the only place where they were sure to be heard, or whether they were taken up purely for the sake of debate. Either way, with very few exceptions, the students' pro- and anti-slavery careers existed only while they were studying at Columbia, suggesting that the school did more to foster an atmosphere conducive to critical discussion than we might expect, given its classical curriculum. The debates themselves reveal the same sort of anti-slavery rhetoric that arose in Columbia students' writing. They tended to use highly sentimental language, grounded in moral and religious argument. In 1817, when the Philo-Lexian Society was debating the question, would emancipation of the slaves be beneficial to the United States, the negative side reminded the audience that they do not mean to countenance slavery. It is repugnant to every feeling of humanity, and they would cordially unite in abolishing the detestable traffic of human flesh, provided it would not be injurious to our country. Within the scope of the debate, the bad policy of emancipation won over the issue of morality. But these young men were aware of the ethical sacrifice that they were making. This concern with the morality of slavery was not new to students at this largely Episcopalian school. An early student, Daniel D. Tompkins, the later governor of New York and vice president under Monroe, wrote a series of essays against slavery in 1792 and 93 while a student, in which he used almost exclusively this sort of high moralistic style. Tompkins wrote in one of these essays, "Ought not Americans to remember that he who crowned their labors with success did it that they might be free, and will not, oh gratitude will not, every tender mind, shudder at the awful charge against Americans of retaining in ignorance the unhappy Africans." Economics, politics, and social unrest all played into the discussions of slavery at the time, but for this young Columbian, they were irrelevant. The important issue was the humanity of the slaves and the religious implications of denying it. Columbia was not at all the hotbed of political activism that it would become in later decades. It was a very small and relatively new school, populated by the sons of the merchant elite, which, like other elites, stood to benefit from the status quo. They were a conservative lot, and with but very few exceptions, like John Jay II, they did not go on to have anti-slavery careers. But it seems that Columbia, with its politically aware, if academically classical faculty, its cosmopolitan setting, and its organized debating society, created a space in which students could discuss slavery, and some of them certainly did discuss it. Though many were silent on the issue, unable or unwilling to see it around them, a select few were not, and they spoke out against it in highly rhetorical and moralistic ways.